Welcome to Exploring the Paranormal. Hosted by Heather Leigh, PhD, Exploring the Paranormal offers a new, fresh look into paranormal research. Join Heather as she discusses some of the many haunted locations worldwide, discusses why these locations are haunted, hear from paranormal researchers about their personal experiences at these locations. Additionally, Heather takes a journey into the science behind the paranormal, discussing topics such as thermodynamics and the Heisenberg principle and how they both affect paranormal activity. Now, your host of Exploring the Paranormal, Dr. Heather Leigh.
Good morning, everyone. I am super excited to be here on a Tuesday morning. I hope the weather is great by you here. It's just a tad bit overcast, but hopefully by this afternoon, the sun will be out and shining. And I will definitely, for those of you who are further north, I will definitely send some warmer weather up your way. Throughout the show, as always, please do not hesitate to ask any questions about the paranormal. Today's show is going to be a little bit different than some of my other shows I've done, mostly because unfortunately, my guest, Chelsea Gill, had to cancel today. But please send your prayers and thoughts. A firefighter in her community fell over the weekend, passed away, and she is in the process of doing work in the community to help with that, and they're laying him to rest today. So she will be rescheduled. Don't worry about that. I was so looking forward to having her on. She's an amazing girl. I love her to death, and we will have her on probably, depending on how my schedule works, we'll have her on either in April or May. But don't worry, she will be here. She was kind of disappointed she couldn't be here, but we all understand things happen, and she needs to put herself and her community first. So moving on from that, again, for those of you who are new to the show, like I said, always feel free to ask any questions you guys may have. I am going to be doing the show a little different. I'm pulling up some slideshows on the back end, and I'm going to be just kind of going over some topics and discussing different things. So if you have any questions about what I'm talking about, any questions about anything paranormal, even if it's not something I'm talking about, please, ask in the comments, and I will make sure I get to those throughout the show. But real quick, for those of you who are new to the show, I'm Dr. Heather Leigh, and I am so looking forward to sharing my knowledge with you. I've been in the paranormal field for more than 30 years, researching everything from behind the scenes work to active investigations to client cases, and I just absolutely love it. I recently have 2 books that came out, and good morning. I hope you're doing okay. Thank you for joining us. My first book is Haunted Southern Nevada Ghost Towns, and then my other one just came out a couple weeks ago, Ghosts and Legends of the Vegas Valley. You can get those from History Press or Arcadia.com, ArcadiaPublishing.com. You can also find them on Amazon or reach out to me and I can send you an autographed copy and get you the information on how to get your hands on that. I also do have my new book I'm finishing up, a little bit delayed, but it's getting done. Editing it today. Keep your fingers crossed. I can get it off and out to the publisher tonight or tomorrow morning, and then that will be out this fall. And that one is called Haunted Florida Lighthouses, and that one was such a fun book to write. Can't wait for you guys to see that one and learn about all the different unique and interesting stories that Florida has. Some of them I didn't even know happened until I started researching. So that is a lot of fun. And real quick, you can also catch my other show on every other Wednesday night, and that is called Ghost Education 101 with my co-host. And the reason why I want to bring this one up, because this is going to be a fun one. We are having a panel discussion. Ghost Education 101, we change things up. We go from guest interviews to a presentation to a panel discussion. And this time on March 14th, we are going to have a panel discussion. And the topic is para-unity, the idea of para-unity and team conduct. The guests on the panel will be myself, my co-host Philip Wyatt, Christopher George from Anubis Paranormal, David Taylor from Our Haunted Lives. Larry Lawson is a former sheriff's deputy from the Indian River County area here in Florida. He also has the Florida Bureau of Paranormal Investigations. He will be on the show, and he's done several presentations for us. And then Steve Dills from Transcendent Paranormal. all amazing group of guys. Cannot wait for you to hear what they have to say about that. And they all have different views on the concept of paranormal, para-unity and team conduct. So that is going to be an absolutely fun panel discussion. And then also, before we get going, you guys know a couple weeks ago, I got a sponsor, Omni Interactions. It's a company where you can work from home and get your life back. This is a 100% remote company looking for US-based customer service representatives. Sorry, I'm fighting a cold or a flu. I don't know what it is. To support Omni's Fortune 500 clients. So for more information, you can visit my website, heatherleighphd.com, or getgig.life/paranormal. And I will have all of that on my Facebook page throughout the week. And like I said, it's also all on my website where you can get that information. Just go to the show page. So real quick, I wanted to, with the topic of para-unity, I got to find my screen. And I wanted to go over some information that I have. I'm working on putting together a presentation for an upcoming convention, and it's about being an ethical investigator. And this is really important because you have people who aren't really always on the up and up when it comes to paranormal investigations, of course. And it's not so much that it's intentional. Of course, you do have some that are intentional, but it's you fall into they don't know better just because they're new to the field. And that's why I do what I do. I want to make sure that I can help educate the next generation of paranormal investigators. Just like with Witches Paranormal Society, our goal is to educate the next generation of witches going out and doing paranormal investigations. So it's kind of one of those things. I love doing these presentations. I love putting them together. So much fun. And so I hope you guys really kind of enjoy the information that I'm giving, because it will help. It not only helps educate the new investigators, it helps educate those who have been in the field for a while but weren't properly trained, which happens. I mean, paranormal tourism is out there, and we'll talk about that later on. Nothing wrong with that, but it's sometimes they're not there to help clients or get properly trained, which is fine, but you just kind of need to know why you're in this field. And then also to serve as a reminder for those who have been in this field for a while, to get back to our roots, get back to the basics, and remember why we are actually in this field. So that brings up the first question is, why do we investigate the paranormal? What is your ultimate goal? In the field? Why are you here? What is it that you want to achieve? Like I had mentioned, you have the paranormal tourists, which is perfectly fine, or the hobbyists they're called. These are the ones that go out for fun, want to get scared, want to see a historical and spooky location. They're not really in it for the research. Then you have those that are here to help others. They want to help them determine if paranormal activity is happening in their home. They take on client cases. They help identify what's happening, what type of entity it is, who it is, if they can. And then they also help them, to the best of their ability, clear their home or help the client cohabitate with the spirit. And then you have those that are like me at my level right now. I want to dig deeper. I want to get the answers behind why. Why does paranormal activity happen? How come it doesn't happen here, but it happens here? Why do we get more paranormal activity on a full moon versus a new moon? Whole bunch of different, so you kind of got to figure out what your ultimate goal is in this field, and that will guide you to where you want to go, the path you want to take, the type of cases you take, the places you investigate, and the type of research and experiments that you do. Then you want to find your motivation. What motivates you to get out there? Is it the thrill and excitement of being a paranormal hobbyist and or I've heard people refer to them as paranormal junkies. Is that your purpose? Do you like the thrill of going to these locations? Or do you feel satisfied when you help a client? Or are you motivated to find the next best experiment or to capture the next piece of evidence? And that goes into, with picking your goal, purpose, and motivation, you pick out what type of investigator type you are. And it's not that you can't fall into multiple categories. Of course you can. but you kind of need to pick where you fall. So I've actually divided up a whole bunch of different paranormal types of people, is how you would say it. Of course, you have the hobbyist, or the paranormal tourist, and these aren't people who are going out for answers. They just kind of want to go out and experience what a ghost paranormal investigation is. They want to experience, and it doesn't mean that they don't want to learn about the haunted history of locations. It's just that they're not in it for any other type of purpose but I guess you would say self-gratification. Then you have the part-time paranormal investigator, and these are the ones who truly want to help people, or they want to conduct research. But of course, because we have jobs, we have to work as a paranormal investigator part-time, because in the field you don't really get paid unless you do other things such as books or anything like that. Excuse me, I am so sorry. And they're the ones that kind of just do it when they can, at night, on the weekends, on their days off. When I used to be a part-time paranormal investigator, I would, take vacations based around paranormal research. So those are the ones that want to be in it more and are dedicated, but they kind of have other commitments that they have to do, so they can't do it full-time. Then you have the full-time researchers, and those are the ones that dive in deep. They do everything they can to figure out what's going on with the paranormal field full-time. This is our job. We, like, for example, for me, I do freelance writing on the side, but that's my part-time job. That really doesn't do much outside of pay the extras that we have, pays for travel for paranormal investigations. But my ultimate job is researching, writing, training, and kind of, helping others, in addition to getting the answers behind, all these answers that I want to know. So you kind of want to pick out where you're at. You can always go between the two. And just because you're a full-time paranormal researcher does not mean you can't take a moment to be a paranormal tourist. Trust me. I love going and playing, geeking out, I guess you would say it, and playing a paranormal tourist, going to different locations and having fun. So good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Again, like I said, feel free to ask any questions you have. Currently, I'm talking about being an ethical investigator, and I'm going to try to last as long as my voice will let me. So it's quickly going. But any questions along the way, it could be about what I'm talking about or about anything paranormal. And then finally, about why we investigate the paranormal is you want to figure out what your team is able to do for your client. If you are taking on clients, are you able to help them the way they need to be helped? Are you experienced enough in, hold on a second, making sure my dog doesn't bark. Someone walked behind us. You want to make sure that your team is not only able to be there for your client, you want to make sure that you have the experience, the knowledge to determine the difference between demonic and, a human spirit that's just angry. Because one thing I've noticed is the most inexperienced teams, it doesn't mean they can't help clients, because they're still, you got to get your experience somehow. But the more inexperienced teams that I've encountered are the ones that are more likely to jump to it's a demon when it's very rare that it ever is. So you kind of want to do that. And if your team is going to be helping clients, you want to make sure that your team gets out there and practices their skills. And don't do your practice with a client. When I was on a team out in Vegas, we had a location that we would host our monthly meeting, and we would do an investigation of the location as practice. We would test different experiments. We would do different things. And that was that was where we practiced and played. And because when you're helping a client, that's not the time to practice and play. And you want to make sure that whenever your client needs you, not saying that you need to be there at 2 a.m., but you want to make sure that you're there for your client. You show up when your client, like say you scheduled to be there at 7 p.m. to do an interview with the client. You show up, you're prepared, you're ready, and you want to make sure that you can help them. If you can't help them, there's nothing wrong with saying, well, this is, way above my abilities. let me get you in contact with another team, which is why networking with other teams is definitely a must in this field. You want to make sure that you are networking and communicating with other teams. And with that, you know who can handle what, and you're able to call and get that help that you need when you need it. So, and again, real quick, thank you everybody for joining us. I'm seeing you popping up in the comments. Good morning. Any questions, feel free to ask. I'm always happy to answer them. And today, again, my guest could not be here. So I'm just kind of winging it. So again, no particular topic. I just pulled up a presentation that I'm working on, and I'm going through the notes with you guys to kind of just offer information on helping anyone who needs help or anything like that. So in addition to being an ethical investigator, you want to know your venue that you're investigating. You want to know the history, the layout, and who's the host, who owns the property. And the reason why you want to know these things is because if you know the history, whether you research the history before you go on the investigation, which I recommend at least one person on your team investigates it beforehand so they can guide the investigation based on the history of the property. You want to know the layout because then you can warn people where to go and where not to go. Nobody's running into walls, nobody's running into furniture. And you want to know the host, because if you don't know the host could be a shady character. And you want to make sure that you are, you know this information, because without it, for example, if you don't know the history, whether it's before the investigation or after the investigation, you can't help determine what evidence you got or what evidence, you should be getting to help your client. For example, some history you could ask is, of course, the standard is, did anyone die here? But there's more to it than that. You want to know, was there any type of physical abuse, break-ins? Did someone use a Ouija board, or has someone tried to communicate with someone else? Any other traumatic events occur in the house? Any happy events occur in the house that could be triggering it? And then you also want to ask the host, who do they think could be haunting the location, because that could help you out as well. And then again, like I said, if you know the layout, you're able to warn other investigators where to go, where not to go, and along everything like that. Okay. Now, in order to be an ethical investigator, you need to make sure that you know what your legal responsibilities are, because the last thing you need is for your team to get sued or anything like that, or you to be sued. So first of all, of course, you need to have permission to be in the location. Even if you're just going out and investigating a cemetery, make sure the cemetery is open. If you're going at night after the cemetery is closed, get permission from the caretaker and get it in writing and carry it with you, because if the police do show up, you want to be able to provide them the information as to who to contact, showing that you did get permission, and also show that you do have permission as well. Make sure the person giving you permission is the proper authority to give you permission to be there. For one example is apartment rentals. Just because a person lives in a home doesn't mean that they're the person that can give you permission. You need to go to the actual owner of the home, because the owner of the home may not want you there, or they will be upset if they find out that you guys did come in there, because a lot of people still today, when they hear, oh no, a paranormal team came into a property, they're automatically thinking Ouija boards, dark magic, conjuring spirits, when that's not what we do. So you want to make sure that you talk to the actual owner and make sure that they're okay with you being there. If you're investigating a museum or a park or an office structure, you want to make sure that you go to the proper people, and you need to ask that, are you the proper person to give me permission for this? Not only that, you want to say, what gives you the authority? Just because someone says, I live here, well, what gives you the authority to let other people on your property, to do an investigation? And of course, they have the permission to let you come on their property. But as far as the investigation, if the owner of that home or building found out that you were there without their permission, it could cause some issues. Not saying that it does, but you do put yourself at risk for that. And then you want to make sure that you follow your duty of conduct, that you and your team are handling yourself proper. No one's goofing around. No one is damaging property. You're not removing property from a location. You're not using a Ouija board when asked not to. One example we have is one location, they didn't want to know they were haunted. So they let us come in and do investigations, but we could only use audio. We couldn't use video. We couldn't use photo. And we made sure we stuck to that. So you want to make sure that you are, following the rules set forth by the person who's giving you permission to be there and the host that's having you. You also want to, I completely forgot what if they don't want the information out that they're haunted, or if they don't want to know a paranormal, team was there publicly, make sure that you sign non-disclosure agreements and that both you and the host sign it, because if you can't share that you're there investigating, you want to make sure that the host doesn't either, because that could open you up to a whole bunch of not really legal issues, but issues. You could get questions. It could pose problems if, the owner's trying to get your evidence and information. You want to make sure that both parties are in agreement of either releasing the information or keeping everything quiet. Okay, and then you also have civil liabilities. And this is whether you're doing an investigation, hosting an event, or anything like that. You want to make sure that all investigators and guests, this includes team, guest, host, sign a waiver. Basically, this waiver states that, you have permission to be there. The waiver says, if anyone gets hurt, it's not, the team's problem. It's the individual's issue to take care of. You want to, if any property gets damaged. And this is one of those things where you also want to make sure you have team insurance, because that covers you just in case. Let's say even if someone sued you and you ended up winning the case, that could cost a lot of money just to fight in court. If you have that team insurance, you at least can recoup a lot of that money back, if not all of it, depending on your policy. You want to make sure that no one goes on an investigation sick or ill. And no alcohol use or substance abuse during or before the investigation. And this is important because, first of all, when it comes to illness, you don't want to get other people there sick. And this was a big concern during COVID. And, you also aren't your best when you're sick on an investigation. You open yourself up to being possessed, oppressed, injured, and just the spirits, trust me, the spirits know they're going to take advantage of the weakest link in the group. And when you're not feeling good, you want to make sure that you are not sick during the event. And again, the biggest one is not getting other people sick. So like today, of course, I wouldn't be going on an investigation because of my allergies, or I don't even know, allergies, flu, whatever the heck I have. Especially, because I don't want to get anyone else sick that's around me. You want to protect yourself and the other guests from unwanted guests from joining the party. Some people I know, and this is a fine line, and it's a question that I've asked a couple former sheriffs and detectives in the past that I've had on other shows, is some teams bring a gun with them, and they bring it with them when they investigate in shady areas, which personally, I mean, if you have permission to be there, okay. But most of the teams that I know that bring it, they do urban exploration, which is a topic that I'll bring up later in the show. But my concern is, the person carrying the gun, what if there is a demonic entity there and it takes over the person carrying the gun? So I don't, and there's a lot of people in the paranormal field that are split. So you guys can chime in with your opinion. But some people say that carrying the gun is a great way of making sure everyone's protected during an investigation, just in case anything happens. And I've never had anything happen yet, but there's always that slim chance. And then others say that it could do more harm than good by having it on the property. So, not wanting to get into a gun discussion here over the legalities of guns, but just kind of want to know what everyone's opinion is on protecting yourself when you're at a venue. It could even be bringing pepper spray or anything like that. But you do need to discuss as a team and agree as a team on what methods you guys are going to use to protect you guys. You want to make sure, again, going back to the mapping of the area and knowing your venue, You want to draw out a map, identify dangerous areas, mark potentially dangerous areas, and then during the introduction briefing before everybody goes out and investigates, you want to point them out. You can even take everybody if the venue's small enough. I've investigated venues that it just takes an hour to walk through. But if the venue's small enough, take everybody to the locations that are potentially hazardous. Get the yellow police tape or warning tape and mark off those areas. So that way people know, hey, I really shouldn't be going in that area. And as long as everybody knows, you've completed your civil liberties and warning everybody properly. Okay, and the one big thing is respect. I touched on this a little bit previously, but you want to make sure that you respect the venue. It's one of those things where it's the property. Don't do experiments that violate the rules. For example, I mentioned the no photographs or no video. Some people don't want Ouija boards on their location, so make sure that you don't do that. And I always, because Ouija boards are a sensitive topic in the paranormal field, not that I use one, I use pendulum boards. So with my pendulum boards, which are similar, basically the same thing, you want to ask before you even bring them, because why bring that extra space with? But say, hey, talk to the property owner and say, hey, here are all the experiments we want to try. Are there any that you're opposed to? So that way there's no shock. Follow the Boy Scout rule of leave no trace behind. Make sure you take your trash with you. If you move a picture, put it back. One team I know, they take photos of the entire house beforehand, which is always a great idea. So that way you have a baseline of what the house looks like. And then they go back through the photos in every room before they leave, and they make sure everything is back where it belonged. Report any incidents that happen. If someone tripped, if you broke something, make sure you report that directly to the owner or the host, so that way they can get it taken care of or document it and make sure or do the proper reports associated with the incident. Okay, you also want to make sure you respect the host. Share full disclosure of routine procedures. We talked about that. Make sure here's how we investigate. Here are the experiments we want to do. Sit down and go over it with them and make sure that everything is okay. Be prepared to begin on time. Respect time limitations. If you're only supposed to be there till midnight, don't investigate till midnight and then start packing up. You want to probably stop investigating between 11:30 and 11:45, so that way you can start packing up and be out of there on time. Limit noise, especially if there are neighbors nearby. Don't go off to closed off areas. So always ask before you investigate, where can and can't we go? And then be mindful of all the requirements that they have put, they've put in place. And you just kind of a whole bunch of different things you can do to be respectful. Everybody, at least everybody should know how to be respectful when it comes to other people and also places. And real quick, again, thank you everybody for joining us this morning. I see you all here. Happy to have you join us. And we are about to take a commercial break, but when we return, I'm going to continue on going over my information about being an ethical investigator. And then also I'm going to talk about paranormal tourism versus urban exploration. So make sure you get your questions ready and you're ready to interact. But before we go, don't forget to check out my new sponsor, Omni Interactions, where you can work from home full or part-time hours that are convenient to your own schedule. Working for Omni allows you to create your own schedule in 30-minute or 1-hour blocks. Finally, a company that allows you to get your life back and a place you can, basically a place that is perfect for paranormal investigators to work for. Because you can set your own hours, you can work around your investigations and your research. Definitely an interesting company to check out. You can find more information at heatherleighphd.com on the Exploring the Paranormal page that I have there, or at getgig.life/paranormal. And just make sure you tell them that Dr. Heather Leigh sent you. And we are going to go to a quick commercial break. And when we get back, we will continue going over my notes that I have for you guys.
The Body Code is a revolutionary method of energetic healing developed by Dr. Bradley Nelson, which allows us to quickly and easily identify specific imbalances that seem to underline chronic ill health, acute and chronic pain, and discomfort, dysfunction, and stress. Ellie energetically connects with the subconscious of the client. Psychic medium Ellie Weisencell is a medical intuitive and energy healer and a certified body code practitioner. She identifies and clears energetic imbalances within the body and energy field. Contact Ellie at the website below, and Ellie can work remotely from a distance, by phone, online, video chat. There's no need to travel to an office. Remember, the body code is safe for humans and animals. Contact Ellie today.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to Exploring the Paranormal. Super excited to have you all here. And before I continue with the topic that I'm discussing, I want you guys to do a favor for me. I want you to, if you can, if you're still here or if you're watching the replay, always love comments in the after the show. I want you guys to comment first with how long you've been investigating the paranormal. Or you could even put what age you had your first paranormal experience. I want you to comment with your, so number one is how long you've been in the paranormal or your first investigation. Your first experience, you can choose. Number two is your favorite place to investigate or favorite place that you have investigated. And then number three would be your dream location to investigate. So real quick for me, my first paranormal experience was I was 17, saw my grandfather. Started researching the paranormal immediately because I had no clue what was happening. So I've been in the field ever since then, and well over 30 years, not to age myself here. But then my favorite location to investigate, I would have to say it's a tie. It's McCaw School of Mines out in Vegas. It's a cute little museum about mining. They have a train from Area 51, a whole bunch of fun things to do there. If you go to my Facebook page at Dr. Heather Leigh, you'll see a photo album of the location, and it's absolutely, I used to volunteer there, and then we did fundraising events for investigations. An absolutely cute little location, lots of fun place to explore there. And the other one I would say would be Florence Mine up in Goldfield. Had many personal experiences there, unique experiences. One experience that opened my eyes to paranormal investigating. And just all around, it was a great weekend that we spent there. And then number three, the place that I would love to investigate the most, even though I have been there, I've never actually investigated. I would love to investigate St. Augustine Lighthouse. And I've been there several times, but never done a paranormal investigation. So that is one place. And hopefully my co-host from Ghost Education 101 makes his way down to Florida, because he does that quite often and investigates there, and we can investigate there and do some live streaming from the location. So yeah, so those are mine. So number one, when you had your first paranormal experience or when you joined the field. Most people, it's like me, it's the same age. Number two, your favorite location to investigate. And then number three, your dream. Actually, I'm going to add another to my number three. I would love to get into the Sydney Opera House for a paranormal investigation. I don't know why, but every time I see that image and a picture, just something screams out to me that place is haunted, and could only imagine if the walls in that building could talk, what type of paranormal activity occurs inside that building. So feel free to comment those at any time during the show. If you have any other questions, you guys know I'm an open book, happy to share any experiences, any information. I know we were joking before the show. My producer, Todd, he said I'm an encyclopedia. So, and if I don't know the answers, I know where to get them or who to go to get the answers. And that's why I say networking in this field is an absolute must, because the more you know, the more you can get out there and get the answers that you need or the training you need. You know, I'm the type of person, I guess you could say it's my OCD. If I don't know the answer to something, I do everything I can to learn about it. And I don't stop until I have every piece of information about a certain subject. So again, if you guys ask a question that I don't know, you can trust in the next couple weeks, I'll get that answer for you. So, okay. So going back real quick, I was talking about being an ethical investigator. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this today was not only because I'm doing a presentation for an upcoming convention on it, is I've seen so many stories, so many people posting on Facebook about unethical practices. I've encountered, I mean, I would say about, I don't want to say a majority, but definitely half of the clients that I've helped over the years have come to us because they've reached out to another team who either gave them bad information, who came in and investigated, but then disappeared. They ghosted them. So it's one of those things where it's like, you know, it's more common in the field than people want to think. I mean, there's so many inexperienced investigators who don't want to let others know that they're new. So they go in, they conduct a residential investigation, and then they don't know how to handle it. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that just brings me back to the fact that know your limitations. That is like the number one thing when it comes to being an ethical investigator. You want to make sure that you know your limitations and you're able to help the client, admit when you can't help the client, and go from there. So Courtney, thank you for responding. He said, I've never seen a full apparition. I'm a Claire, blah, blah, blah. Get me? I get that. It's one of those things where it's like, I say I'm clairaudient, but then it's like, wait, I was able to do this. I've only seen orbs and I believe I get visions. Okay, whenever you go through old homes as a kid, I would feel, I'm the exact same way. I can totally relate to that. And I can feel and sense energies. I'd love to investigate one day. Well, hopefully we can get you on an investigation one day. I am working with a couple different organizations to do different conventions and paranormal investigation and training events across the country. So stay tuned for that. But I completely understand that what going through old homes, whenever we would house hunt, I've walked into houses and I don't even want to see the rest of the house. And I'm like, nope. Just from walking into the front door. So I completely understand that. And I truly do appreciate and thank you, Courtney, for sharing that. It's amazing. And, the Claire, blah, 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 love that. Cause I've never really kind of figured out how to explain that. But to me, I'm going to be using that from now on, if that's okay. Yep. You can feel the spirit and smell them. Yep. And everything you said makes sense. And good morning, Teresa. Thank you for joining the show. If you're just joining us, make sure you catch the replay. I will be posting the links on at Dr. Heather Leigh, so you can catch that and catch earlier in the show and everything that we've discussed. So getting back to that, we had just talked about respecting the venue and respecting the host, always a must. But if you think about it, it's just standard manners. And then you want to use those same manners and respect the spirits in the area, wherever you're at. No demands. They're not show ponies. They're not circus animals. You can't say, speak an EVP and you get an EVP. I mean, 9 times out of 10, you might. 5 times out of 10, you might. Who knows? But you can't demand. One thing that I do for an investigation to kind of not only to show respect, but to gain the respect of the spirits, is I'll go in. Of course, I have an EVP recorder going all the time during this. And I just kind of introduce myself, talk about who I am. I sit down, so that way I'm just not as intimidating standing, especially if you're tall. I mean, who knows? You might be taller than the spirit, especially if it is of a true child and not another entity pretending to be a child. So I sit down and I just start talking. I'm like, hey, this is what I do. These are my hobbies. This is a beautiful home, or this is a beautiful location. And then I just kind of sit there and I say, you know what? If you have any more questions about me, please let me know. I'm here to talk to you. I want to have a conversation. I'm not here to hurt you. Just kind of want to learn a little bit more about you and your home. And then I just usually sit there for about 5 minutes. One time I did that, I got music playing. I captured music playing, and there was no music playing in the room at the time. Another time, couldn't make out what it said, but it sounded like someone was mumbling. And everyone in the room with me was silent. And there was no one in any nearby rooms because everybody in the team was in the room with me. So, and I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm losing my voice, so I'm going to try to last as long as I can. So you just kind of want to make the spirits feel comfortable with you. Do not threaten. No, if you don't do this, I'm going to X, Y, and Z, or you must do that. Don't threaten. No antagonizing. No provoking. Again, like I said, they're not circus animals. So it can be dangerous for you and others on your team to threaten or provoke the different spirits that might be in the location, because you don't know what you're dealing with. You take it. I can never do. Yeah, so there's so many of them out there, Courtney, that it is kind of it's interesting, and it feels like you're explaining my upstairs bedroom. It's there are sometimes rooms that I've been in, locations that I just don't want to go to, and rooms in a home. I know it's kind of one of those things where, cliche to say basements, but it's one of those things where our basement in the one house, we had moved to a new house. The first basement house, I loved being in it, but the second basement, I just couldn't stand being in it. So, looking back on that, it makes me wonder, could there have been something in that basement that we just didn't know because none of us spent time in it? So you just never know. So other ethical information or ethical issues that you may run into. A hotbed of paranormal debate is charging for investigations. Some teams do, some teams don't. That is a personal opinion of the team, and I don't judge either way. I don't personally charge, but I also don't do residentials anymore. I put my residentials on hold just because I wanted to focus on experiments. And like I said earlier, you don't want to try a new experiment in a client's home for the first time. So some do charge because, of course, they have to pay for expenses, depending on how far they have to travel. There's gas, there's food, there's lodging, a whole bunch of different reasons. Others only charge if they have to cleanse the home to pay for the supplies. So again, it's not, I'm trying to think of the right word to say. It's frowned upon for teams that charge, but there are reasons why some teams do. So before you make that decision to charge a client or not, think of other ways your team can get money, whether it's donations, hosting events, teaching classes. There are other ways that you can raise money to help pay for your client investigations. So that way you're not having to charge your client. It's a topic I usually tend to stay away from. But it's definitely needs to be brought up because there are some teams out there that do charge. And that, again, is their personal choice. You want to make sure that you don't make any promises to your clients that you can't deliver. Don't promise that you can rid the home of the spirit. Don't promise that you can identify who the spirit is. Don't make any claims that you can't back up. Do not disappear on the client. Make sure that you return time and time again. Check in on them after the investigation. After you show them any evidence you've collected or help them, check in 2 weeks, then maybe a month later, and then every 2 months, and then eventually you could get to the point where you might just be checking in with them once a year, or just sending them a Christmas card to let them know that you're still there. And make sure if you promise something, you follow through. And I always tell people, you want to make sure you're there because you said you would, and that's the ultimate reason behind that. Oh, thank you. Thank you for interacting, Courtney. And yeah, I completely get not wanting to go into a certain room. And then, again, going back to the making promises we can't keep, there are many different things that could happen if you do that. You have possible emotional harm on the client. You could face legal issues because if you sat down and, verbal contract, I promise I can X, Y, and Z in your home, or I promise I can get rid of the spirit in your home, and then all of a sudden the next day they have paranormal activity again, you could end up being sued for not following through with your promises, especially if you charge. Going back to that charging, you destroy your reputation. And then you also destroy the reputation of your team. And again, it could have a ripple effect, and you could destroy the reputation of the entire field. There are many, we had talked earlier about the unethical investigators that are out there, and they're the ones who kind of give the field a bad name, because it's one of those things where people, focus on the bad. They don't look at the good people are doing. So if you have one team over here that is, completely destroying the field, it's going to ripple effect and affect the teams that are doing good. There are a lot of places that we've tried to investigate, or we've tried to host events to raise fundraisers for. But because of certain TV shows, they just say, they're not open-minded. They just say, you know what, I don't want to have any paranormal team in here because of so-and-so show. Other people have told us, no, I don't want paranormal investigators here because the last team, did X, Y, and Z. And then that's when you just need to make sure that you work on, educating the public, educating your clients, educating people who own these locations. If they're willing to listen, talk to them about how you do it. Talk to them how about majority of the field does it. Make sure that people don't know that it's the same way. And that truly is, that's my motivation in this field. I want to make sure that people understand, A, there's nothing to be afraid of. B, they can protect themselves. And C, there are places that you can get help. This field isn't just about going out and provoking. It's all about having fun and getting the answers that are needed while helping people. And people need to realize that not all teams are in it for selfish reasons. I mean, of course, many of us have the selfish reason of, I want to get answers for myself because of my experience as a child. Or, I've had a recent experience and I need answers for myself. Of course, we're all in it for that because we want answers. But we also want those answers to help others. It's not just us. It's not just for selfish reasons that we're doing this, and so on. So my closing statement for that one is, I want you guys to think about what type of paranormal researcher do you want to be? Do you want to be the paranormal tourist or hobbyist, a part-time paranormal investigator that goes out and helps people and also does research when you have time? Or do you want to do this full-time? Or another category we can throw in there is, have you always been interested in the paranormal and just kind of want to sit back and research it? Watch shows like this, watch other shows that are out there, podcasts. I mean, even the TV shows. TV shows are great. People just need to remember that it's for entertainment purposes. So you got to kind of pick and choose what you do and what you believe from the show. But you could be, I guess you would call it an armchair paranormal investigator, someone who sits behind the scenes and does research. I was one of those for many, many years, and that's what I did. So there are many different categories. So before you actually get out and start investigating, make sure you and your team sit down and really determine what type of paranormal investigators you want to be, who you want to, help, what kind of places do you want to investigate. And this could all be things that you guys write out and put in your team manual, your team training manual, or your bylaws or anything like that. If you guys want to put anything like that together. So just really think about that before you, because you don't really want to be that paranormal tourist that goes and helps a client without knowing what to do. So make sure, and always, I tell people, like I talked about earlier, keep learning. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to figure out what's, going on. Don't stop learning. There's always room to learn more and go from there. So since we've talked about paranormal tourism just a little bit, I wanted to kind of dive deep into that more often, because I'm noticing more and more paranormal investigators and teams are falling into this category. So what is paranormal tourism? So basically, I categorize it as a special section of your regular tourism that is defined by the desire for travelers or people who have spare time to learn more about the haunted history of an area. Basically, paranormal tourists visit popular haunted locations, stay in haunted hotels, go on the paranormal tours, and seek out the most haunted communities in the world to go on vacation. There is a lot of controversial over paranormal tourism, but by definition, this can be exciting, educational, and enjoyable. So many different things. You can learn so many different things. I take, the tours to learn more about the history of a location. And I'll get into that later, more about finding a reputable tour if that's what you wanted to do. So what is urban exploration? Many people often consider urban exploration as a part of paranormal tourism, but they're two completely different things. This form of tourism, if you want to call it that, involves exploring man-made structures that have been abandoned and not generally open to the public. Urban explorers tend to go to these abandoned places without permission to conduct paranormal investigations. Common places include abandoned mines, amusement parks, hospitals, schools, asylums, abandoned subway tunnels, and factories. It can be dangerous physically and psychically. You can, depending on where you're going, you could be exposed to toxins. You could, for example, if you go into an abandoned mine without a tour guide or without the knowledge of the area or permission, you could run the risk of the mine collapsing. It's illegal. It's considered breaking and entering and trespassing. And you can damage the site too. So it's really, urban exploration is not really recommended to learn more about paranormal tourism or haunted locations because you're really not, you're there to try to get paranormal activity, more or less, which is a good thing, but not, there's other ways that you can get it. You could easily find out who owns the property and get permission to be there. You can get permission to tour it during the day. You can get a tour from the person who owns it during the day. And then, again, have permission to be there at night once you know all the dangerous sites. But there are many, many reports of people being injured or in legal trouble from going to these sites for urban exploration. So how do they differ? When done correctly, paranormal tourism should be experienced by a group tour, a hosted event, or visiting historical sites that are open to the public and during operating hours. Paranormal tourism is also where you get permission to be in a location, and it is perfect for those looking for more information about local urban legends, paranormal activity, and the area's history. Urban exploration also involves, again, like I said, abandoning places not open to the public and without permission. Most paranormal urban explorers that I've seen, at least on their YouTube videos, which always amazes me, let's break into a place, shoot a video, and put it up on YouTube. Especially I've seen some with the no trespassing sign behind them. I even saw a video once of there was a roped off or chained off area at an outdoor ghost town with a sign that says no trespassing, and the team videoed them going underneath the chain and conducting an investigation inside there. Most of them antagonize the spirits rather than take the time to learn about the location. Urban exploration is often illegal and considered trespassing. Paranormal tourism is conducted in a safe, monitored environment, while urban exploration can be hazardous paranormally and psychically. And urban exploration, in my personal opinion, is not the best way to learn more about the paranormal field. Okay, so several people do say that paranormal tourism is not recommended, but that's mostly because people think that it is urban exploration. So the reason why a lot of people don't recommend it is because it can be dangerous. Of course, we've talked about that. If you're unfamiliar with the supernatural entities that could be at the location, if you haven't done your research, you could expose yourself to getting an attachment, getting attacked, getting possessed, depending on what's there, oppressed, or the obsession, physical attacks. Plus, abandoned locations are so remote that if there is, if there is an injury or something happens, you're too far away for police or fire or rescue to get out to you in time. So you want to make sure, of course, you always want to make sure people know where you're going, but still, I don't recommend urban exploration. But for those of you who do it, make sure someone knows where you're going, what you're doing, and how to get a hold of you. Okay. And then also some people do think that paranormal tourism can harm the paranormal field. And I do agree with that to a point, because a lot of people who don't know much about the paranormal field see these because there's more paranormal tourists than there are researchers or investigators. They see these tourists go out there causing trouble, getting hurt, not caring about the property, damaging things. They go to YouTube and they see the videos of them provoking, yelling, screaming, being disrespectful. And of course, if they see more than one of those videos, they're going to think that, all of us are like that. So I do feel that it can harm the field in that aspect. Others feel it harms the field because people see us as conducting illegal activity, because several of the urban explorers don't care if they trespass. Several people conduct dark practices, which dabbling with things that no experience working in the field, doing things they shouldn't deal with, conducting experiments that they're not experienced in, and a whole bunch of other things. Again, a lot of urban exploration. A lot of people think of drug use, underage drinking, vandalism, damage, removing objects from sites without locations. They act in unethical ways. Tour or event groups are not reputable, and then ego gets in the way and causes a lot of tension between groups over territory disputes based on these things. So going back to, I know I mentioned that I would bring it up again, is finding a reputable tour group. I'm a firm believer that if you go on a location, you should, or go on vacation or anywhere, take the guided haunted ghost tours. I took the ones up in Gettysburg from Mark Nesbitt, amazing guy, amazing tours. And I knew I was in good hands. I took the tour to learn more about the history, to see in person some of the hotspots for paranormal activity. The one I took was a candlelight ghost tour, so much fun. The candlelight created an eerie feeling as you're walking around the town. So definitely, if you're in Gettysburg, definitely take his Ghost of Gettysburg tour. And then you could also, in majority of the cases, a lot of the people who run the ghost tours are experienced paranormal investigators. So it offers a time to ask questions, to find out how they investigate, to, just kind of bend the ear of the person giving the tour and see more information about the field and learn more about how you can do different things. And then also, again, like I said, it's perfect for history buffs, even if you don't care about the paranormal. You can learn a lot about the history. And to find a reputable team, I always tell people or group, make sure of course, we have online today, where back in the day when I started my tours or going on vacations, we didn't have the internet. So I had to do, the asking questions. For example, find a group that does their tours out of a reputable location, not just meet here. For example, there's a tour that used to go on down in Tampa, but it left from a marina, and the marina is well respected. And I know the marina owner wouldn't have a tour group in there if, he didn't trust them. Gettysburg, when I was up there, I learned about the tour because he was based at the time at the college bookstore. So I got to ask questions of the people that worked at the college bookstore. You can ask friends and family which ghost tours they've been on and what they liked and what they didn't like. Internet, you have Yelp reviews, a whole bunch of different things. And then if it does say what team, if it is a paranormal team hosting it or person, you can do research on that person or the team to see what kind of reviews or comments might be out there. Facebook is a great place to go get information. I mean, you just have to, if you have a lot of paranormal friends on your Facebook and you just type, hey, what is the best ghost tour? I'm sure you're going to get a lot of people. I know another group, Indian River County, just across the state from where I live. Larry Lawson, I mentioned him earlier. He's going to be on Ghosted with me. He runs the tours there, and he's a great guy. Information back on him, sheriff's deputy, detective, whole bunch of other stuff that he's done for the county. And he also donates the profits. Of course, they keep some to make sure that they pay for all the expenses for everything, but the profits get donated to the Historical Society. And that's usually a good sign that it is a reputable team conducting the tours and the events, because you can even go, there's a whole bunch of different events out there too. And the events are hard because they're different stories out there. You want to make sure that you research, again, the group hosting the event. For example, I know there were several events in Arizona that the organizer took money from people and then left town and canceled the event. Nobody got refunds. There was an investigator out in Vegas who he would host investigations at different locations, or he would do investigations at major locations throughout the state. And he would open it up to other investigators to join him. And he would charge $100, $200, $300 for people to join him. And then he would cancel it. And upon canceling the investigation, he would say, well, no refunds. Well, typically no refunds means if you don't show up to the investigation, or if you cancel and say, I can't be there. But if the event organizer cancels it, you should be getting your refund and your money back. There have been conventions that have been hosted across the country that I'm trying to think of. Some people will know what who I'm talking about or what I'm talking about, but there have been some conventions across the country where the organizers put on a great event. The people who attended the event loved it. They had a great time, but portions of the event would get canceled, and then it would take months for people to get their refunds for, the VIP tour, the VIP dinner, the meet and greets, and a whole bunch of other things. And then, whatchamacallit, they also didn't pay their talent. And it's not just been one convention. I've heard of a couple other conventions where the talent was promised X, Y, and Z, and they didn't get it. But everybody who attended the event as a guest had a great time. So you want to just make sure that whenever you do anything paranormal wise, going back to the ethical investigator, that you take the time to discover more about the person putting on the event, the company, the team, or anything like that. You can even check the venue. I know this has nothing to do with paranormal activity, but when I used to do craft shows out in Vegas, there were a lot of issues where people would host craft events at major casinos. And when people would show up to the event, the doors to the convention center where they were supposed to have the craft show was closed and locked, and nobody was setting up. And then they tried to reach out to the person hosting the event. They were nowhere to be found. And they paid a couple $100 for their booths for those. People started, say there was an event coming up. People would actually look at it, see where the venue was, and they would call the hotel and say, hey, I hear you're having a convention or a craft show or an event on, March 15th at, 9:00 in this room. Is this true? And the person who's in charge of either catering or event booking can verify that. And if it's verified, at least, you have a greater chance of the event continuing, not saying that it won't be canceled or something will happen. But if it's verified, it's a more than likely a reputable event setting up, not just someone trying to get money. It's a shame the world is like this, but of course, it happens. It's the world. So you better do everything. It's best to do everything you can to protect yourself, protect your team. And of course, if you're really in this field for the right reasons, you want to protect the reputation of the field. So, and that was not quite going to end yet, because I'm going to, I do have more. I thought that was the end of my notes. So now that I've been babbling about something completely different and thinking I was going to be ending soon, I do have a little bit more. But again, if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I'm here. I want to thank everybody for joining me today. I know today's kind of not your typical show because my guest did have to cancel. So if anyone is coming to see Chelsea, unfortunately, there was a death of a firefighter in her community. So they are doing the services today. And she will be rescheduling, hopefully in April or May. I will have that date soon. for you guys. But I do getting excited for next week's guest. Before I continue, make sure you join me at 10 a.m. Eastern next Tuesday. I have Tim from Photographs. It's a fundraiser raised for humane societies with celebrities where you can get your pet photographed with a paranormal celebrity. So he will be on to talk about his events and anything he has upcoming. After that, I have Heather Caminetti. She is a witch, so we're going to be talking about all witch and things. I think her Facebook page is Witch in Life. I'll have to look that up. And then later in April, I have Stephanie Algady. She had to cancel because she was ill, but she is going to be joined by 2 members of the Georgia Paranormal Investigation team on that day. Joe Frankie will be joining me in April. I have a panel discussion of women of the paranormal, which I think will be fun. I just don't know who my guests are yet, so stay tuned for that. I also have Dan Rivera coming on to talk about the Warren Supernatural Seekers Convention coming up. And then Christopher and Anson will be returning with Anubis Paranormal later in May. So just make sure you stay tuned for all of that. It's going to be one interesting year, and I am still working on a whole bunch of different things. Yes, and COVID did cancel a lot of things. That was really sad. I know we had the team I was on, because I was still living in Vegas at the time, we had a huge fundraising event that we were going to do at I mentioned the Cost School of Mines earlier. And we sold out in a day. And then there was another lecture at a library that sold out in 3 days. And there was like 180 seats in the library that we were going to do a presentation on Haunted Goldfield. And both were during COVID. And we, last minute had to cancel because like everything shut down in Vegas the week before these 2 events were supposed to happen. So very, very, very sad. But hopefully everything is back up and running all across the states. I know there are some states where there's still, I guess, a surge in COVID. I know where my mom lives across the state, her doctor warned her to be careful because there was a rise in COVID cases. But from what I understand, that was just a brief spike. And then now it's settling down. And who knows, I think I might be going and getting a test because I've been dealing with a stuffy nose and congestion for a few days. So I might do that just to make sure I don't have it. But yeah, COVID really did put a wrench in everything from investigating, helping clients. I really do think COVID changed how we do things, because during COVID, we actually still continue to help clients, but it was through video chat. Granted, we couldn't go do investigations in their home, but we could at least help them not be afraid, offer them tips, do research on their home to try to get answers that way. And COVID also is what brought about my other show, Ghost Education 101. We started doing shows live to help give people something to do and, to provide educational opportunities for free surrounding the paranormal field. So yeah, so COVID did cause some problems, but it did help in a sense on other things. So real quick, getting back to a few more things that I wanted to talk about paranormal tourism before we go. I just finished earlier talking about how paranormal tourism can harm the paranormal field, but on the other hand, it can do good. It helps raise awareness about the field, helps share history, raises money to preserve historic sites, which also preserves the historic stories with those sites, shows people the correct way to conduct a paranormal investigation, especially if you do an educational event beforehand and then let everybody investigate. It helps educate others about our field of research, giving them more information on what to do, what not to do. And it provides a safe place where those who are curious about the paranormal field can experience it without becoming an investigator. And that's the most important thing. There's so many people that I talk to that are like, oh man, I really wish I could go do what you do, but I don't know where to start. Going, even if it's a ghost tour, but going to an actual paranormal event where they do an investigation at the end is the perfect place. It's a safe environment. You're in good hands as long as you've checked the, reputability of the team hosting it. And it's definitely a great way to dip your toes into the field before you jump in, buy equipment, and spend a lot of time trying to find a team to join and then realize this isn't for you. So, those are great ways to learn more about the field. So real quick, is there a safe way to experience paranormal activity? There are several ways that you can do that. You can join a reputable paranormal investigation group, find them online, take a guided tour, like I mentioned, go to a location that you have permission to be at and get that in writing. Never go alone. Don't antagonize the spirits. Be respectful of the venue, the hosts, the spirits, and show them that you care and that you're not there to cause trouble. And then if in doubt, again, if you're not sure, you have a pit in your stomach or something, you're not feeling good. If you're in doubt of if you can conduct an investigation safely, just don't go. Stay at home. Okay. And then if you don't want to join a team or become a paranormal investigator, you can still enjoy paranormal tourism. Like I had said, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. You can find paranormal events. Several different companies across the country host reputable events with amazing talent. Attend a paranormal convention. Take a local ghost tour. You can even find local ghost tours probably within 30-minute drive of your home, depending on where you live. Research and read about the paranormal. And then watch videos and podcasts, but always be careful about what you do watch. Yes. Yeah. Leigh, my husband was the same way. He ended up finding a job to work from home. So yeah, COVID did have some good things about it. So with that said, I'm going to remind everyone, join us next week. Unfortunately, hopefully, Todd, you don't mind if I end a little early because I'm starting to lose my voice and having trouble talking. Sure. Okay. So I want to thank everyone for joining me. Make sure you join us next week. Learning more about photographs is going to be a fun show. And I will let you guys know when Chelsea is rebooked. And if you guys have anything you ever want to talk about, please don't hesitate to email it to me or message me or find me on Facebook at Dr. Heather Leigh or on WLTK-DB Radio on Facebook. And just comment on any of the videos that I've done, letting me know what topics you want to talk about. Because I could always gauge my guests. I usually gauge my topic around my guest I have, but I could always pick a topic and then pick a guest that fits that topic perfectly. So again, thank you everyone for joining me. And before we go, earlier we chatted a bit about my show sponsor, Omni Interactions. Make sure you take time today to learn more about their self-scheduling opportunities, which is the perfect for the life of a paranormal researcher. Learn more at getgig.life/paranormal and let them know that Dr. Heather Leigh sent you. So again, thank you, everybody. I'm super glad you were able to join me this morning. Sorry I'm cutting this short, but the last thing you guys need to do is keep hearing me cough. Yeah, I love your first name. So yeah, just make sure you guys join us next week, and we will see you with an amazing, actually, I think, sorry, Todd's probably back there getting ready to click the end button. But next week, I think I might also talk about animals in the paranormal field before I introduce my guest, which is the perfect topic. So again, if you guys have any questions, don't ever hesitate to reach out. Hope you guys have an amazing day, and I will see you next week.
The truth is here and now on WLTK-DB Talk Radio at WLTK-DB.com.